Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 13 of our Salesforce admin training. Today, we're going to continue with our data and analytics management, part 2. And today, I'm going to be covering a lot about data and how to validate data, how to work with data, generally, how to create reports and dashboard in Salesforce. So as part of the curriculum from Salesforce, we're supposed to know how to validate data using different validation tools that Salesforce has provided out of the box. In addition to that, you want to know how to create reports, how to manage dashboards, and how to customize or present data in a format which maybe the business has requested you to. So I like to break things down, and this is what we're pretty much going to be covering today. Data validation to, we already did a bit of data exporting services, but I'll be focusing more on reports and custom report types. Then we're going to be creating dashboards, okay? So without wasting much of your time, let us go into our trailer. I go into the trailer, I log in into my account, and I just waiting for it to load, and I go into my hands-on orgs, okay? Then I can launch my org. So now, so far, we've seen how to get data into Salesforce and everything looks good. However, when you're working in an org, chances are you want to ensure that data entering the Salesforce org is clean, okay? You want to ensure that the data for account name is actually meant for an account name, and you're not putting amount into account name. You want to make sure that close date is actually taking a date value. You want to make sure that stages are actually the options which you are expecting it to be, okay? So how do you ensure this? Salesforce has two data validations, which you can carry out when working with data. The first one is the system validation. What are system validation data? System validation data are essentially ways which Salesforce has built inbuilt Salesforce tools that helps you ensure the integrity of the data you are sending into the Salesforce. So system validation rules are placed in Salesforce and are set up on the field to ensure that the required data which you're sending into the object is valid. So what do I mean by that? Okay, let me give you an example. We're in a contact object and I say new contact, okay? And I say I want to enter an email, okay? Black Force demo, and I say, okay, it says last name is required. This is a validation, okay? This is not system validation. This is more of according to Salesforce, this is more or less a system validation because Salesforce requires you to validate this, okay? It requires you to enter this last name, but it's not really system validation as such. It's just a required field validation, okay? System validation are where you are supposed to enter an email, okay? So we have this, right? Salesforce requires me to enter an email, but I'm not entering an appropriate email. You've entered an invalid format. Can you see? This is system validation. System validation is a validation put in place to ensure that the right data which is required for the field has been entered. Okay, so data validation or maybe object validation, whenever you're entering data into the system, you want to ensure that you have a last name. This is another form of validation. I wouldn't call it system, but I'll call it the validation put in place by Salesforce to ensure that whatever they've designed within the contact object is going to work. For instance, if you don't have a last name, you cannot create a name field within the contact object. Okay, so you can refer to this as system validation, but system validation is more of an inbuilt validation put in place to ensure the integrity of the data you're sending in. Birthday, when you're saying you're entering a birthday field, you have to enter a date field, a date data. You cannot enter birthday and say born in 23rd July 17 something something, right? In as much as this is a birthday, it's not really appropriate, or it's not really valid. Is not a valid data to put into this field, because Salesforce is expecting you to have this format. Okay, it's expecting you to have this format. So in as much as this is a birthday, it's not really the right data that Salesforce is expecting. Okay, these are validations. So we have system validation and we have other form of validations. These are the validation you can use out of the box. Okay, these are validation you can use out of the box when you're working with your Salesforce org. However, there's also what they call the custom validation. The custom validation are the validation Salesforce have no idea. So for Salesforce, for instance, if you're creating, let's say you're creating a billing date, start date and end date. Salesforce has no idea about your billing start date and end date, but you don't want a billing start date to be greater than the billing end date. That's a custom validation you have to put in place, because Salesforce has no idea what you're talking about when they say billing start date, billing end date. Okay, so that's custom validation. Before we jump into custom validation, let's look at examples of how to create system validations and the use case of system validation on a typical contact object. So let's go to setup and go to the contact objects and find out how to create a system validation for a typical field. So I go to fields and relationship. Let's say I want to create a new field and I want that field to be a required field. That's a form of system validation. And I need to select what's required. This is the criteria that makes that field required. So when you see the red sign beside the field, okay, when you see that red sign beside the field, it is that criteria called required field here that makes that red sign to show up, and you cannot enter data into the system without entering data into that field. Okay, unique field. Unique field is also a form of system validation that ensures that the data you're entering into that object is unique to that object. Let's say we're listing all the banks in Canada and we are putting them into the account object. We have RBC, we have CIBC, we have BMO, we have TD. We cannot have RBC two times. We only have one RBC. We only have one CIBC. We only have one BMO. So I can say anytime the accounts object is accepting account name, I want the name on the account to be unique. And I just select this. Okay, I select this, meaning that anytime we have RBC, anytime we're entering a new data in the system and we're calling that name RBC, it's going to reject it. It's going to say we have either a duplicate value or it's going to override that based on the rules you put in place. Okay, so this uniqueness of data means that I want to ensure that anytime data is coming into this particular field, there shouldn't be any other data that match or any other that matches this field, okay, that matches this data, okay? A good example also is an email field. If you're entering email into the system and you want all your contacts to have a unique email, imagine you have two contacts in the system and they both have the same email but different names. How is that logical? How does that make sense to your business? How would you be able to identify or communicate with a particular customer if they have the same email? So uniqueness of a field determines whether you can accept similar value in that field. Okay, uniqueness determines whether you can accept similar values in that field, and you can only use uniqueness of a field when you're selecting a data type that is text, email, numbers, okay? In addition to that, the uniqueness of a field has what they call sensitivity. By sensitivity, it can be case insensitive or case sensitive. Case insensitive meaning that ABC all caps equal to ABC small cap. Case sensitive means that ABC all caps and ABC small cap has different values. So if you type in ABC here, for instance, you type in ABC as the name, and the next time you type in ABC, then it's going to see ABC all caps and ABC small caps as different value. That's what the sensitivity is all about, okay? Yesterday, I told you about the external ID. External ID is used to identify the ID of a legacy system coming into the Salesforce, okay? So now that you have an idea of what you can do with system validation, again, remember there are so many options you can select. Date field. For instance, you have to enter only date. You cannot put test into a date. Email. Though these are validation. These are system validation that Salesforce gives you out of the box. Okay. But now, let's say we're working on a different concepts, different objects or different requirements. Let's say we have a new object called students, and we want to say registration dates in the student objects. Okay, registration dates in the student objects. And I go to the student objects, I go to fields, I go to new, and I have dates. Okay, so I put it registration date. Okay, and I click on next, and I save. So now we have a field called registration date in the system. When you are enrolling a student into the system, you want to have a field called registration date populated, okay? So now the question the business is asking you is this: I do not want the registration date to be blank. I want all students to have a registration date. So what would you do? You would make registration date a required field, okay? You make a registration date a required field. How do you do that? You go to registration dates, you edit registration dates, and you make it required, okay? You save. So now, anytime you're entering a student into the system, registration date is required. That's a system validation. Now, another business requirement says registration date should not be greater than today. Meaning, when you're entering student into the system, how can you register a student for future dates when you're registering a student right now into the system? You cannot register a student for future dates. You have to register them for current dates, okay? So how do you make that kind of validation? Salesforce has what they call custom validation. Custom validation is when the validation has nothing to do with the default Salesforce validation, data validation. Then that's where you introduce what they call validation rules. What are validation rules in Salesforce? Validation rules are rules you create, okay? Are rules you create to validate the integrity of the data you are entering inside an object. So let me repeat that. If you have a student registration date that cannot be greater than today's date, so you cannot register a student for the future. You have to register them now. The date for registration should not be greater than today's date. This is where a typical validation rules can be used, meaning that if I want to create that requirement, I go to new and I say, read this message. It says, define a validation rule by specifying an error condition. Error condition meaning that whenever this rule matches, whenever this rule kicks in, there should be an error that will tell the user that you cannot enter that field because it violates the business requirements. Okay, so now I want to ensure registration date is valid. Okay, then you say, you can put a description if you want. I will go on the student objects, registration dates, insert. I can check if today is a valid Okay, so registration date greater than today. What does this mean? It means that if the registration date is greater than today, then show this error message. You cannot register a student for the future. You cannot register no, don't say that. You can just say registration date for student registration cannot be in the future. So what you're saying is that if registration date is greater than today, then display this error. Where do you want to place that error? Top of the page or beside the field? Save. So now we've created this validation rule. This is what they call a custom validation rule. A custom validation rule is a rule that you create because of the business requirements. Not only because of the business requirement, because there is no inbuilt Salesforce rules that can help you achieve that business requirement. Then you have to create that custom validation. Okay. So now let's see how this works. I go to the student objects and I create a new student, okay, with a student number 090, department engineering, status, registration, assessment, GCSE. Then I put a registration date of 28, okay? It says registration date for student registration cannot be in the future. Why? Because I am selecting 28th of February 2022, and that's in the future. So now, if you want, go back to validation rules, see what we're saying. We're saying registration dates greater than today, meaning that show me this error if the registration date is greater than today. That's custom validation. There's so many use cases for custom validation, but you have to design that custom validation based on the business requirement. Don't just go about creating a lot of validation rules in the system, because there are limits to the number of validation rules you can create. However, you need to be logical about it. Imagine we have just written this the other way around. Imagine we've just said less than today. It's going to go through. So you have to be very sure about your logic. Remember, this statement needs to be true for it to kick in. So you're not looking for the negative of that situation. You're looking for the positive for that situation, the instance at which that rule will take place. Again, for instance, the Salesforce even gives us an example. If discount percent exceeds 30%. So let's see what a typical discount. Let's say we have a field on opportunity and want to give a discount on opportunity. If the discount is greater than 30%, display the error. If the discount on opportunity is greater than 30%, display the error. That's what validation is all about. I want to stop the user from creating this data because the business does not want me to let the user create that data. It's violating the data integrity of the discount, okay? Discount on opportunity objects. And we just put 16 and I put 2 and I said required, maybe not, okay, required, next, save, okay? So now I have this, right? I have this on opportunity and it's discount. I want to put a validation rule, new, discount, check, okay? That means I'm checking the discounts, okay? And I just want to copy and paste this one. Discounts, instead of me copying discount percent because I don't have it, I'll just look for it. Opportunity, I go to discounts, insert, okay? Cannot be greater than 0.3, right? Check to make sure that there is no error. Then I say discount cannot be greater than 30%. So if you're in a business and you want your user to be able to give discount on opportunity, if it's greater than 30%, don't allow that discount to be created. This is what they call custom validation. And guess what? Every time you create a validation rule, you can make it active or inactive. So where does this play? Where does it come into play? Remember yesterday, data import wizard. I told you workflow rules, validation rules. Do you want to stop data inserts as a result of validation rules? This is where the data import wizard was checking. Remember yesterday, I showed you the importance of validation and workflow rules. I told you that if you're inserting data, the system will ask you, trigger workflow rules and processes new updates. If you allow this, it's going to stop certain data from being created, okay? Assign lead, all these kind of rules, you can stop them with data import wizard. For data loader, it automatically runs. You don't have the liberty to stop these rules. That means you have to do what? Disable those rules if you're not interested in them running, okay? It's very important to get that. Like, if you don't want background rules to run while importing your data, go to all those background rules and disable them. So how would you know which one of them to disable? This is where documentation comes into place. You want to document everything you're doing in your Salesforce org. There's what they call solution documents, solution design. There's what they call Confluence, whereby you document everything, how to do anything on the Salesforce org. If you're working with an enterprise, everything will be structured. You cannot just be going into the Salesforce org to do anything without a user story, without a business process. Okay, so please don't just click or do anything without a documentation, because anytime an architect comes into the system to fix something, they will first of all go and check what you've done in the hub. So you don't want conflicting solutions. You want to check what are the impacts of this action I'm about to carry out. Okay, so now you've seen custom validation, system validation, and you've seen how you can create a system validation and how you can create a custom validation. Let's talk about order of processing. As you can see, when you create a new record and you decide not to enter a required field, the system stops you from even going forward. The system stops you from going forward, meaning that anytime you want to create a new record, there is a check that goes behind the scene that you don't get to see. This is what Salesforce refers to as order of processing rules. In Salesforce, we have what they call the order of processing rules. There's an acronym for this, but it's up to you to memorize that acronym as a consultant. But as an admin, you don't really need to memorize the acronym, okay? You just go with the flow. When you face a roadblock, you fix it, right? For instance, when I click on save, it tells me, no, you cannot save this record because you have this, you have this, you have this, you have to fill them. This is validation rules. It checks first. Anytime you want to create a record, the validation rule checks, okay, is this record valid? Is this valid? Validation rules is the first rule you have to check. When you're creating a data, Salesforce check, is this data valid? Okay, now, once it's valid, it goes to the next one. This one is not, you guys might not be aware of this, but ignore this and focus on number 3. This is for developers, okay? Before triggers is what should happen before the record is saved. That's what before trigger is, but you don't need to worry about that. Focus on the next one. What is the next one? The system validation rules checks, okay, you haven't entered this, so I'm not going to let you go forward. The next one is your custom validation rules. Okay, now that we know that it's good to go, especially on the students, okay? On the student objects, I want to create record. I want to create record, and I have, did I make date required? Let me refresh. I think I made date required, right? Okay, yeah, date is required. So now this is, okay, I'm good to go. Name is required, right? Save. Now the custom validation you've created, it checks that as well. Okay, that's the next order. Then it checks duplicate values. If you have duplicate rules in place, I do not want the same student name. I do not want the same student name. It checks that next. So order of execution is how Salesforce checks the integrity of the data before executing that action. As you can see, we have a lot of checks. However, the one that is probably applicable to you right now is the validation rules, the duplicate rules, the assignment rules, workflow rules, and the likes. So what that means is that if you have a web to case coming from an external website, and the data that the customer is entering from the website is not valid. If that data is not valid, it will not even go to the assignment rules. You know, the assignment rules is where you assign the owner of the case, right? It will not get here because it's going to be bounced from here. Okay, so you need to get the right data coming in from that external website into Salesforce before the assignment rules can kick in. Okay, so please pay attention to that, and you will understand the order of execution. Order of execution is very important when it comes to Salesforce. Okay, so now you've seen how, like, that's the high-level summary. Okay, that's the high-level summary of how this stuff works in Salesforce. Now, let's go into what they call duplicate rules and duplicate management. As you can see, you have a lead object, you have an account object, you have contact object, and chances are anytime you're importing data, chances are you might be importing data that are similar, data that you've already imported into the system. How do you prevent this from happening from a Salesforce point of view? Salesforce has what they call a duplicate management tools. Duplicate management tools that enables you to manage duplicates. Okay, it enables you to manage duplicates. And as you can see, the duplicate rules, the duplicate management are duplicate rules and matching rules. But let's talk about duplicate rules for now. What are duplicate rules? Duplicate rules are the rules you put in place to stop duplicates from entering the system. What do I mean by that? You have a lead object, and you do not want to Ebenezer Olajide to be in the system. Anytime Ebenezer Olajide is coming to the system, you want to check. You want to find out if we already have Ebenezer Olajide in the system. If we have Ebenezer Olajide in the system, we want to stop that record from getting saved, or we want to do something. We want to stop or either do something. What should we do? That's the right question. What should we do to stop Ebenezer Olajide from entering into the system? This is where duplicate rules come into play. By default, we have standard rule, but you can also create your own rule. I want to create a rule for lead, and I want to say check leads. Okay, you can give it any name, but I call it check leads. Okay, now the question is this: you want to determine an action. What is an action when it comes to duplicate rule? An action is what should happen when Ebenezer Olajide comes into the system. Do you want me to create Ebenezer Olajide, or you want me to stop Ebenezer Olajide from entering into the system? This is the action. Allow Ebenezer Olajide to be created. Block Ebenezer Olajide to be created. If you allow, then do you want to alert the user that you are creating a duplicate, or you want to report it? If you want to report it, it's going to send you an email. Okay, so that's the first action on create, if you're creating it. However, if the record is already in the system, but you're editing that record and you're now creating a duplicate as a result of the edits, then it's going to tell you, do you want to allow or block? Okay, and if you want to allow, what should you say? What do you want? Okay, so now it's saying what matching rules. The next one is matching rules. What matching rules are you looking for? Right now, I've been saying Ebenezer Olajide, but why can't you have 3 Ebenezer Olajide in the system? What are the chances of you having 3 John Does? Especially if you're living in, let's say, if you're living in a very in a country where they have almost the same first name and last name, John Doe, John Smith, John Smith, John Smith. It is possible to have 10 John Smith in the system. Why would you want to stop data called John Smith from entering into the system? You're going to be losing leads if you're so rigid with your matching rules. So what Salesforce gives you is the opportunity to create a matching rule. Matching rules are the rules you're checking. Matching rules are the rules you're checking to find out. So you're checking the combination of different field values. You're saying, okay, maybe you're saying if company name is ABC and email is abc@abc.com, then it is a duplicate record. However, if the email is different, then it is not a duplicate record. So what this means is that I want to set some form of matching rules that will stop the record from being created, or I want to create some form of matching rules that I need to be checking. I'm checking the company name and the email for my duplicates, okay? So now let's create a simple matching rule on the lead object. I select object of interest, but what can you observe here? You can only create matching rule on accounts on the following standard objects: account, contact, lead, and you can create matching rule on any custom object which you've created, okay? So remember that there are limited number of standard objects you can create matching rules on, but for your custom object, you can create matching rules on them if you want, okay? So which object are we looking at? We're looking at lead object. So I click on the lead and I click on next. So now I'm saying check for duplicates. Okay, you're checking duplicates on the lead and you're saying, what are you looking for? I'm looking for the company. If the company matches, okay, and I'm looking for the email. If the email is exact, you're not using some regex or anything like that. So you're saying if the company and the email are the same, then it is a duplicate. That's what that means. If the company and the email coming into the lead objects is the same, then it's a duplicate. So what you need to do is activate, okay? Now you've activated this rule, which is in place. Go back to your duplicate rules and go and enforce that rule, okay? New rule on the lead objects. I'll just say duplicate checker, or make sure you're very descriptive, okay? Because descriptive rule name would help you to, investigate any error in future, okay? So now you say, what do you want to do? Should I let this be created or not? Let's start with block. Block on create, block on edits, okay? Use one of this error. The alert will be, you already have this lead in the system. Use one of this record, okay? And compare this with the leads record, the leads object. Select your check for duplicate, the one you created. Don't select the default one. Obviously, you can select the default one if you want to, because Salesforce gave you a very robust matching rule anyway, but select the one you just created during the matching rule. This is why you're creating the matching rule first before the duplicate rules, okay? Now, you're saying check using this, and okay, optionally if you want to, but you don't need to, okay? Save. Now you have this in place. If you go to the lead and you create ABC and ABC, okay, you save, then obviously just give any name, you save, then you have a new lead, okay? You call this ABC and ABC. By default, this should be a duplicate. It should be a duplicate and it shouldn't let you create it, okay? again, you put a name, but this should be a duplicate, okay? But it lets you to save it, and this shouldn't happen. But let's see, in the duplicates, I did not activate. Okay, you have to activate your duplicate rules. Anytime you create any rule at all, Salesforce gives you the option to activate that rule. If you don't activate that rule, it won't kick in. You have to activate the rule. So let's try this again. Lead, new, ABC, and the email is ABC, okay? Save. Now, can you see? You cannot save this record because a duplicate record already exists. To save, use different information. This is you stopping duplicate record from entering the system. This is what they call the duplicate rule, and it's as a result of the matching rule you created. This is very powerful too. It helps you to ensure the integrity of the data that you're collecting. For instance, what was our action? When we created the duplicate lead check, our action was what? Our action was to block. We want to block that from being created. So now let's do allow on create. Okay, but let's alert. Allow on create, but we want to alert. Okay, we want to send an alert to the user that although the data you're entering into the system already exists, I'll let you create it, but I will still warn you anyway. That's what that means. Okay, let's refresh. And I'll use the same data again, ABC. Save. Remember, we allow on create, okay? It's a similar record looks like an existing record. Make sure to check any potential duplicate value before saving. Do you see what the difference is? Like view duplicates, then it's going to ask you, do you want to use this? If you select this, it's going to let you use this, okay? You can open this lead and use it. Otherwise, it's going to, if you select allow, this is what it means, okay? If you select allow, it's going to give you the option to use either of these records you've created previously, and it's going to match it. And you can map that lead that you just created if you want to, okay? You can map it if you want to. However, you have the liberty not to do anything. But if you had selected block, you wouldn't even get that option. Again, this is on create. But if you want to edit, you can also put that option there. You can also put that option there, and the same option, sorry, it's gonna like give you the option to use and everything like that. Okay, but we don't, I'll just use the original record, that's fine. Merge. Okay, but let's edit right now. Edit, and remember, it's a duplicate, okay? It's a duplicate. I save. Now let's create a new I need to, in order to do that, I need to initially not have a duplicate, okay? So save. So we now have two ABC, okay? Two ABC, that's fine. But I want to change this to, let's just change this to this, okay? Which is fine. So now we have two ABC company, but different email. That means they are not duplicates, okay? So now this one that says allow on edit, we can say block on edit. If we say block on edit, then it will not let me create a duplicate because we're now having a duplicate value in the system, okay? It's very important, okay? As you can see, it's giving you that error. If you have to open this card, if you have to open this and you edit, you will see the error message clearly. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not do the changes. Edit, take up the R so we can have the duplicates, save, and now you see the error message, okay? So this is how duplicate works. This is how matching rules work. This is how validation works. This is how custom validation works. And this is how you use it to preserve the integrity of the data you're entering into the system. I'm going to take a short break here to find out if you guys have any questions based on what I've just taught. And if you have, please raise your hand up so I can call you according to how your hands are being raised. Do you guys have any questions? Please raise your hand so I can call you according to how your hands are being raised. Mesoma, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hi, Babatope, thank you. Okay, I would like you to talk a little bit about matching, the difference between matching rules and duplicate rules, like the dissimilarity between them.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. The first thing is this: you cannot use duplicate rules without a matching rule. That's it. There is no similarity as such. The duplicate rule is dependent on matching rule. That means you cannot create a duplicate rule if you don't have a matching rule. Matching rule are the things you're looking for to signal the system that we have a duplicate. Matching rule are the things you're looking for. What is matching rule? If you go to matching rule and check for duplicates, what did I say? I say if company is exact and lead email is exact, then we've created a matching rule. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, then I go to duplicate rule and go and create a duplicate rule to tell the system what to do. So without a matching rule, you cannot create a duplicate rule. As you can see, when I'm creating the duplicate rule, I selected the matching rule I created for that duplicate rule. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it makes sense now. Thank you.
No worries. Babs, can unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you so much. This is what I was literally getting into yesterday. I'm almost like my brain is already blown away and I'm so excited. So my question has to do with the rules, and you mentioned there are a couple of them there now. Where best do I use this? Is it best to use can I use it when I get into an organization and they do have a lot of these issues, and I'm trying to set that through to prevent itself? Is that the best way to go about it? See, I find myself as an admin just making that up, right? In an organization.
Yes. I'll be honest with you. Let me mute you for a minute. I'll be honest with you. As an admin, this is not your problem. This is not your problem. You're just here to figure out what it is. Again, I keep telling you, because your consultant would solve problems. As a consultant, the business will call you and say, we have duplicate records in the system. What can we do to prevent duplicates? Then you now recommend matching rules, duplicate rules. That's the work of a consultant. As an admin, you need to know how to go to duplicate rule, click on it, and change whatever the consultant has done. However, it's not your responsibility to think for the business. Your responsibility is to do. You're a doer as an admin. Okay, they've already created a lead duplicate checker, and they said they should allow and block. As an admin, you'll be required to go and change it to allow for both of them or block for both of them. That's the job of an admin. But a consultant is someone that thinks. That's why you need to be a thinker. How can you become a thinker? You become a thinker by knowing what Salesforce can do, what Salesforce has out of the box, or what you can suggest to the business. Okay, so it is your responsibility to know that this stuff exists in Salesforce and how you can help the business implement this. This is a big task for some people and they make a lot of money from it. Okay, so you need to just know, but a system admin, don't worry about it. You just need to be able to go to duplicate rule and change this from block to allow, because that's what the business will give you to do. Okay, so know the differences between a consultant and an admin and you'll be good. Does that help?
Yes, I mean, I think I already realized that, in fact, obviously, the admin, I just started with the admin just to see exactly to what extent is that line. I know it's sometimes a forcing line, right? Because you might find yourself, obviously, you might find yourself in an organization where they've kind of paid off the consultant, and they're looking onto you to say, okay, we have this problem. How do we fix it? Before we go to the consultant, or even the consultant is asking you questions, as the admin is expecting you to actually have some level of knowledge, right? Which is, I think, what you're alluding to here, right?
Yes. I'm trying to teach you guys what everything you need to know. However, depending on how far you want to take your Salesforce journey, you can either stop here or keep learning to know more. Okay, so remember, consultants makes more money because they can think. Admin makes relatively amount of money as well, but they're just doer. They know how to navigate around, know where to go fix problem whenever the business has that problem or the need for them to do it. Okay, Toyin, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hi, I just have a quick question. You said we should not do anything in Salesforce without documentation and ensure that there are use cases. Does it mean that is a Salesforce business analyst that will write those documentations for us to be able to go ahead to do anything as an admin on Salesforce? Is it going to be via like email or something, or probably requirement gathering, or there's something that's been inbuilt in Salesforce that we triggered such thing when a Salesforce business analyst has written that for us to go ahead and update anything on Salesforce as a business admin, as a Salesforce admin?
Okay, to answer your first question, documentation can be done by anyone. At work, I document whatever I've done. BA documents whatever they've done. Admin also documents whatever they've done. So documentation is everyone's responsibility. However, requirements, user stories are tasks that needs to be done, and it is written by a business analyst. A business analyst would liaise with product owners. They will liaise with stakeholders, and those are people that will be telling them, this is what we want, this is what we want. So based on those conversations, a business analyst will write a robust user story that anyone can follow. That user story guides what needs to be done. Having said that, the developer, the consultant still need to document what they've done in the system. What they've done in the system is now stored in what they call a repository. Sometimes they use Confluence, some people use other tools. But you need to document everything you've done regarding a particular object, particular rules, when it comes to workflow, you document it. So whenever someone is working on a particular workflow, they know why you created that workflow. Why did you create that rule? What was the purpose? What does it do? What are the limitations? Okay, so in future, if there's anything that would impact that rule, we need to raise that alarm before you start doing that again. Okay, so documentation is everyone's responsibility, but user stories is done by the business, and it is used to guide the consultant, developer, or whoever it is in or on how to implement a particular solution. For instance, I want to prevent duplicates from entering the system. That is a requirement from business. So the business analyst will now go and write a user story that would explain how and why the business wants to prevent duplicates. For instance, they can say, when a user is entering, as a user, when I'm entering data into the system, I would like to ensure that there are no duplicates in the system. How do you test it? You do a positive testing to ensure that data is in the system. Then you do a negative testing to find out if you enter the same data, you will get a duplicate. Okay, so that's the job of the BA, to test, to write documentation, to write user stories, and to test those user stories whenever the user story has been completed. Okay, if you're in the BA program, you will learn more about it, and you see a lot of work experience that you're going to be doing based on this. Okay, so let's focus on the admin for now, and hopefully when we get to professional teaching, you get to learn more about this. Okay,
thank you, I appreciate it.
No worries. Jane, please unmute yourself and speak.
Hi, Babatope. You talked briefly about standard matching rules that comes by default. I don't know if you can touch a little bit on that, just so we can have a better understanding of the default matching rules.
So if you look at this, right, we have standard account matching rules, standard contact matching rules, standard lead matching rules. These are just what Salesforce created for you. Okay, they created it for you and they want you to use it. Okay, you don't know the content of this, but you know that they are created by Salesforce, right? So if you look at the rule, you realize that you don't know what's going on behind the scene. It's just something Salesforce created. Then behind the scene, what I know definitely is that when you're entering the rule, Salesforce will stop you from creating the lead because you've enabled the leads matching rule. But Salesforce does not activate it out of the box for you. It's now your responsibility to activate it yourself. Okay, so if you want to learn more about the standard lead matching rule for Salesforce, you can just learn it from the help and Salesforce. So it tells you what Salesforce is looking for to identify the matching rules, okay? And based on that, read this documentation and you will see what Salesforce has implemented, but you don't get to see the details. However, if you read the documentation, you will see more about the details of the matching rule. It is created by default, but not activated. If you want to activate it as an admin, this will be your job. They will tell you, go to the back end and activate standard matching rule. And that's it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, so in other words, it will make sense for us to actually understand these standard matching rules for the standard object before we go on to start creating custom matching rules, especially for a standard object, because what we're looking for might already be in here.
Exactly. But remember, if you activate one, you cannot deactivate certain things. So you're pretty much given out of the box solution that you have no control over. So if Salesforce said you cannot create a lead because you have this present and they're matching, then you're already limited to that. But what if you're looking at SIN number? How can you have two SIN number in the system? Do you get what I mean? Salesforce does not have that option for you. Then you can now even activate the standard plus your custom. It is okay to have 3 rules on the same object. As you can see, I have this rule on lead and I still have this standard rule on lead as well. Okay, so it's possible to have 2 active rules because you don't know what Salesforce is checking, so you might be limited. Okay,
Thank you.
no worries. Naomi, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hi, Babatope. Thank you. So I just wanted to be a little bit clearer on the matching rules and the duplicate rules. So let's say, for example, there's a lot of Babatope and the same email on the system. The matching rule is to identify those duplicates. But the duplicate rule is to trigger an error message when you enter it. Is that what it's all about? So the matching rule doesn't trigger an error message. Is it just to identify the duplicates in the system? I don't know if you understand my question.
Yes. Yeah. Matching rule is just used to identify the criteria for duplicates. So what are you checking? What is matching in the system that you want to trigger or you want it to trigger that error? But duplicate rule is just the actions. Okay, now that we have these duplicates, what should I do? Should I allow it or should I stop it? What should I do? Even if I allow it, should I enable merge or not? Those are the kind of things duplicate rule does. Okay, so the duplicate rule is what happens when the matching rule kicks in. Do you get?
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah. So now that you know how integrity of data is being managed in the system, let's go into something more interesting, reports. So reports are created in the system for a particular reason, right? Let's say you just got your first job and they ask you to find out all the contacts in the system or all the accounts in the system. The right thing to do is obviously go to accounts and go to all accounts. You feel like you've done the job, but now they ask you, I don't want to have a print view of all the accounts. That's going backwards. I want to have a CSV copy of all the accounts in the system. How do you do that? You cannot do that from this view. As you can see, this only gives you the view of this account, right? Let's say, okay, I want to find out all the accounts that is customer direct type. I go to filter and I create a filter of type. Okay, I create a filter of type. This is very intuitive, right? Equals customer direct. Done. Save. That's it. But how can I report this to my manager? Am I going to give a screenshot? Or, it's very hard to report this, right? It's very hard. So Salesforce gives you what they call reports. If you're working as an admin, please, you need to know this, because this is going to be what you'll be doing most of the time. Creating user, updating profile, creating reports and dashboard. Okay? How do you create reports in the system? Or even, what are reports? Reports are used, obviously, to report information based on what? The objects present in that report type. So let me explain what that means. I want to get reports on accounts. I need to create a new report. Then I'm going to select accounts. So you cannot say you want to create a report based on opportunities and you're selecting accounts. Obviously you can, but the relationship is there. So that means you can. But you cannot say you want to create a report for students and you're selecting accounts. You need to select what? Students. So reports are getting or reporting on information based on the object of interest. You need to have the object of interest. And based on that object, you can select or you can create a report. Okay, so now let's do a very simple example. I want to create a report of all accounts. I go to reports, I click on new report, then I need to select a report type. A report type is the object of interest, account. So if you want to create a report based on account, you need an account report type. If you want to create a report based on opportunities, you need opportunities report type. If you want to create a report based on leads, you need leads report type. So by selecting or streamlining the report type, you get fields. Okay, you get the fields present in that object. Okay, so these are what they call the standard report type. As you can see, we did not create this. It's created out of the box. These are standard report type. You select the account, you click on continue, and that's it. Gives you the account report. But for this account report, you can see you have the fields of interest. And if you want to get more fields, all you just need to do is add those fields and it's going to give you. You want to get the account site, add it. Come here, it's going to give you the account site. Or you can go to fields by the left-hand side and you can drag it. Drag that field here and it's going to give you the field that you just drag. Industry, drag it, is going to give you, and it's very intuitive. It's very straightforward because this is the list of your worries when it comes to report. Report is more technical. The report is much more harder than this. But remember, when you create a report, the first thing is you want to check what is limiting the report from displaying every data in the system. And that's a result of filters. You want to make sure that the filter are not limiting all the records. For instance, we have two filters present in this report. The first one is show me. You're showing the reports. Initially, it was my account, but I want to show all accounts. Apply. Okay. The next one is created dates. You're filtering based on accounts created after February 16. What if I want to get all the accounts? Just say all-time records. Created date and all-time, and now you have more data. The filter is now gone. This is the real representation of all the accounts in the system. This is a standard report. And anytime, I'll just say copy of account records in the system, okay? And you can save this in a particular folder of your choice. It can be public folder or private folder. We're going to come into this shortly, okay? Let's put it in the public folder and we save in the public folder. That's it. You've created a simple report of all accounts in the system. Why is this good? Why is this benefit? What's the benefit of this? Compared to just getting the list view of all accounts like this, without the filter, obviously, the reports, what can you do? Right click on this report, you can export. You can export in XML, Excel format, or export as a CSV format. So you get all the data in the system. Okay, so that's the benefit of creating reports. It helps you to export data out of the system. Okay, number 2, you can subscribe. What does it mean to subscribe to a report? Let's say the manager asks you, I would like to see a report of all the accounts we have in the system first thing on Monday every 9 a.m. As an admin, you should know how to do this. You will create the report. I want to send it daily, weekly, monthly. Okay, that means you can send report daily, weekly, or monthly. Daily, you specify the time. Every 9 a.m. in the morning, I want this report to be sent out to my manager. You can specify your manager's name on the report, which I'm going to show you shortly. You can specify your manager's name on the report. I save. Now, this report will be generated and you can subscribe to that report. Okay, which I'm going to show you shortly, but I don't want to teach you something that we're going to learn in a subsequent session. Just have at the back of the mind that whenever you're creating a report, you have 2 options to create a report based on the available report type we have in the system. However, it's not all the time you will have this report type present. What if you want to create report for custom objects? As you can see, we have what they call the student object, which is the custom object. But the reason why we can create a report for students, student with department, student with exam record is because of the relationship between student and department, student and exam record. However, even before we can do that, we needed to have done something when we were creating the student custom object. So if you want to create a report on a custom object, whenever you're creating that custom object, you need to have selected allow reports on the custom object. If you do not select that, you will not be able to create a report on the custom object. Okay, so whenever you are creating a report, I repeat, whenever you're creating a report, you need to have selected allow reports on the custom object. If you don't select allow reports, you will not be able to create a report on the custom objects. Okay, so now that you have seen that, now I told you earlier that student with department, why were you able to create a report of student with department, student with exam record? You were able to do that because when you were creating the student objects, you associated it with when you're creating the department and exam record, you realize that you associated it with a student object. Okay, so this is a student and you can see there is department in student. Okay, and if you're going to the exam record, you can select the student, which we've already done when we're doing the master detail relationship and the likes. Okay, that's the reason why you can do that. However, the business can ask you, okay, I want to relate 2 objects together, but these objects are not like, maybe they don't have a relationship, or maybe you just want to do something more fancy, right? Then you go to what Salesforce refers to as a custom report type. A custom report type is not the report type you get as a standard report type, obviously. Is a report type that is custom, the one you created yourself. So for instance, you want to create a relationship between student and department and exam record, you can still do that. You go to the custom report type in setup and you create what Salesforce refers to as a report type that isn't standard. And what is the benefit of that? You have the liberty to edit the fields that display. Look at when you're creating the report for students, you see all the fields all the fields that is in the account. Sorry, when you're creating a report for the account, all the fields that in the account object are present, right? But with a custom report type, you can control the fields. You can control the fields that are present in that report type. And that's the, I wouldn't say the benefit of the custom report type, but it is obviously the feature that differentiates the standard report type from the custom report type. Custom report types allow you to build a framework in the report wizard from which users can create and customize reports. You build custom report types of the relationships. So the relationship needs to exist, but you need to build them off that relationship. Okay, so now that we have that idea of creating a simple custom report type, I can say I want to create a custom report type of let me just select student. Let me select student. Students. So students will be the primary object. That means it's going to be the starting object. You know, if you have done sets in math, you know how this stuff really works. Let me go back for a minute and show you this diagram. Report type. You see this, right? You want to get a data. So let's say the first is A, the second is B, the third is C. You want to get data that is in A, B, and C. Okay, you want to get data that intersects between A, B, and C. So the union of A, B, C is the data you're going to get. Or you want to get the union of A and B, or the data that intersect between A and B. You get this section, right? So the report type is just about what data do you want to get. So you need to have a justification for creating reports. You cannot just say, I want to create a report. You need to say, what data am I looking for? What data, what insights am I looking for? The insights you're looking for, you have to sketch it in your mind. That's why I said this is becoming a system admin. And you get this a lot when you're working. They tell you, I want to find out all the students that haven't paid their what's it called? Their exam fee. Okay? Or all the students that failed chemistry. This is a report. I want to create all the students that failed chemistry. First of all, how would you do that? You have students, you have exam records. So you go to chemistry and okay, you say you have exam record, right? Then, you know, if you filter, you can actually filter and create it, right? But this will just give you the list. But reports, you have to do something logic, which I'm going to show you shortly. But before then, let's go to a simple custom report type for a contact object. I want to create a simple report for my contacts. Or let's select students. Okay, and I'm going to say report type label. Student reports. Okay, it's just a label, right? Description. This is a student report type. Okay, very simple, very straightforward. Store in category. What does that mean? If you go into new report, there is this left column. This is a category, right? So it's saying where do you want to store the report type? I'm going to put it in the other report because it's an other report, right? It's a custom report, and I'm just going to select other report, okay? And in development, deployed, meaning that in development, you're the only one that can access it. Deployed, that means everyone in the system on your org can access it, okay? So now I click on next and I say student is my primary object, meaning student is the starting point of my report. Then I can select all things related to the students. As you can see, exam record is related to student in a master detail relationship. And because we enable activities when creating the student object, we can also see activities, okay? We can see activities. These are activities, events, tasks, log, a call, email, they are all activities. We can see activities. So I can see students, all students that have an activity with email, all students that we've corresponded to via email. That's an activity, right? So you can also associate that, okay? But obviously for now, let's just keep it simple, student and exam record, save. Okay, so now we have this. The reason why we're creating this is because I just want to show you how the custom reports work. What if you have not selected allow reporting on the custom objects, right? So now you've gotten the relationships, then you can now start editing the layouts. What fields do you want present in the report? Custom report type is very boring. If you really need to create it, then you should create it, but try to utilize the standard report that is given, because the standard report is even much robust. We already have the student exam record. So why you're creating this is just because you want to create students exam record with a customized fields, maybe. One of the reasons for this is when you're loading 1 million record into the system, you cannot put all the fields in the report. It's going to make the system slow. So the custom report might be useful to minimize all fields, but then again, you can use the standard report to just take off fields if you don't want. So you have that liberty as well, okay? So don't just jump into custom report type unless there is a good justification for creating a custom report type. So now let's go back to our reporting. I go to reports and I have all account reports. As you can see, we have the account report, which is good, but this is a very simple account report. And let's say the manager said, okay, I do not want just the list view. I want something much fancy. I want something that would help me understand this report. And that's where we talk about the report type. The report type determines, or the report type you are asked to, it determines what kind of information you want to get from that report. So typically, Salesforce has what they call, Salesforce has 4 report types or formats, okay? Based on what you are doing in the system, in the interface, you determine the type of report you're creating. For instance, you've been asked to create all the accounts in the system. This is what they call a tabular report type. The tabular report type is just a display of tables in the system, all report types. Oh, I said all report. All data in the system is a tabular report type, and you're just displaying this data. However, if you are asked to group these reports based on the type of account, or maybe you're creating an opportunity. Okay, I'll just quickly go to opportunity and create a simple opportunity report type. And I have this, I take off the filter, created dates, all time. Okay, so it gives me all the opportunity. Now I have this, right? But I've been asked to group all opportunity by stages. So if you want to group opportunity by stages, then you can just create this type of reports. What did I do? I went to the stage and I selected group columns by this field, group column by the stage, and it gives me this report type. Okay, and this type of report is called a summary report. A summary report gives you the ability to group when you're grouping by a particular field on the row. You are creating a summary report, because a summary report gives you a summary of these stages and gives you some values for those stages, right? So you have, let's say you are summing the amounts, okay? You can see that in close one, I have these values, this records. In value proposition, I have this record. So this is like a summary report. The difference between the summary reports and the tabular report is, in a summary report, you can add a chart. Okay, you can add a chart directly on the report, and you can see the stages broken down, and you can see the value or the record count towards the stages. This is one, I wouldn't say the advantages, but I would say one of the differences between a summary report and a tabular report. As you can see, summary report, it gives you chart. If I take off the grouping, it gives you a very plain tabular without a chart enabled, okay? So if you don't have grouping, you cannot enable the chart. So now that you've seen summary reports, I'm going to group by stage again. You see the grouping, and you can display this grand total. If you want it, you can display it. If you don't want it, you can take it off, okay? So let's say you're doing a summation of the amount, summarize sum, which gives you a summary, okay? If you display this grand total, it gives you a summary of all the amounts, okay? So you have the amounts and you get a summary. Subtotal. So subtotal gives you a summary based on the stages, okay? Gives you that subtotal for prospecting, qualification, and close one. As you can see, you get a subtotal, you get a grand total. If you don't want a row count, you take it off, and it takes off the row counts from the prospecting. Add the row count, it gives you a row count just in the brackets, okay? So what you want from the report is what you will dictate from the user interface. It's very intuitive, but again, you need a business requirement. You cannot just be creating reports for the fun of it. Business is to tell you, I need all the opportunities generated that are $1 million. How do you do that? You create a report and you create a filter for that report. So as you can see, we have some reporting to do. Let's try to do some let's try to do some logic in our report. Okay, I'll go back to I'll come back to this later. I'll go back to the account reports. Okay, the account reports, I have it right now, but as you can see, the account report is very plain. What if the business has asked you to create an account report with contacts? I want to find out all accounts in the system that has a contact. What does that mean? It means if you go to the account object and you go to an account, this has a contact, right? So the business is saying, I want to identify all the accounts in the system that has at least one contact. Okay, you go to the reports and there's what they call filters. So the filters helps you to filter the data in the system. Right now, I've shown you all the accounts. If I want to give you my accounts, I have my account and I say it's going to give you just my account. And if I want my team's account, it's going to give my team's account. Let's go back to all accounts. If I want to get all accounts created based on the first quarter of the year, I can filter and it's going to give me all accounts based on the first quarter of the year. And if I want to get accounts based on, sorry, that was full year, current fiscal year. And if I want to, this is current full quarter, okay? Again, not much differences, but you can see that the values is being filtered out, okay? But let me go to all time. I want to show you how to do a cross filter. A cross filter is a filter based on a related object of the report you're generating. You have an account object, which is the report you're generating, but I want to get all the accounts that has that exists in the system with a contact. I want to get all the reports of that. How do I do that? I use what they call a cross filter. A cross filter would give you records or give you reports based on a related object, which is show me accounts with or without, but in our case, with contacts, right? This is a contact and I apply. As you can see, it has reduced in number, okay? So meaning that this account has contacts, or you can say without contacts. These are the accounts in the system without contacts. Remember, cross filter is based on the related objects for that master object. If you don't have the related object, if you don't have the object as a related object, you cannot create cross filter based on that. Okay, so if I go to give me all accounts with an opportunity, with opportunities, without opportunities, or with opportunities, this is what they call cross filter. Cross filter is filtering records in a report based on a related object. Okay, so now that we have the cross filter, there's what they call, so we have this, and let me group this based on type. Okay, I group this based on type. So I have this, and I go back to the filter, and let me see what other filter can I put. Okay, I want to get all this. Okay, so now I've created filters, and the filter says I want all accounts that has type customer direct, customer channel, and other things I've selected, but with opportunities. As you can see, this is how you start solving business problem. Again, everything I'm showing right now is just intuitive. There is no black and white way of doing this. There is no this way or that way. It is based on your intuition. However, it can get really complicated. Business will tell you to do something and you're thinking, how do I do it? Okay, so now you've seen how to get the accounts based on this type. Okay, let me select all type for a start, and I go and I select with opportunities. That's fine. Remember, you can also add more cross filter, but there's also what they call the filter logic. So filter logic comes into play when you want to get, let's say I want to get all the accounts in the system with customer direct. And if that does not exist, give me all the accounts in the system with customer channel. That's filter logic. Filter logic gives you an option to display one record or the other record, or one record and the other record. If you know how to write logic statements in SQL or in just basic computer, you will be able to use filter logic properly. Let me show you how it works. Right now, this is our first filter. Our first filter say, give me all accounts with the type called prospect, and there are no records. Let me close this. Again, there are no records. That's not good. Direct. Okay, we have 7 records for direct. That's fine. Now let's select channel. Take off direct. We have 4 records for channel. Okay, so we know definitely we have 4 records for channel and we have 7 records for direct. Now let's add type. Let's add a filter called type, and we want to put direct. Okay, so we're saying customer equals channel, customer equals direct, and it didn't give us anything. Let me see if I can change this to no records. No, don't let us use type. Let us use something else, because we already created type, right? Doesn't make sense. So rating will be ideal. So let's say auth. Okay, auth doesn't have any record. Let's say this all. So everything is code. Okay, so let's say, because there is code and no selection, right? So let's say code. So we have 2 records that are code, and we know that there is another 2 records that is not code, right? So now filter logic says, I want to have 1 and 2, meaning that I want all account that has type equals channel and rating equals code. That is what filter logic does. 1 and 2. What is 1? 1 is channel and 2 is code. But I can say or 2. And I apply. Can you see? Or 2 is channel plus code, and is intersection of channel and code. That means it must have channel and it must be code. Or is it is channel plus it is code. That means it doesn't have to be channel and code. Can you see how all opens up the records that we have? Okay. Again, I'm just creating this very basic scenario. When you get on the job, this is not the scenario you're going to be creating. It's going to be much tougher than this, but you need to write it down on paper and saying, I want to create all accounts in the system that has channel and code. This is where you get those logic from. For instance, you can say, I want to get all the students in the system that failed chemistry. This is where you start building that report, okay? So it's very important to know how to write filter logic. It opens up records or stops record, like blocks record, okay? So that's number one. Number two, you can also say 1 and 2 or 2. You know, like you can combine stuff like this. Again, you need to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you would not be able to create a report. So you need to know what AND is. AND is intersection. Intersection. That means I want specifically all account that matches this first filter, channel and code. Or is union, meaning I want all accounts that has channel plus code. Okay, understand what filter logic is and understand what cross filter is. Okay, it's very important. It will help you. I'll delete this filter again, and let's go into another thing. We've done grouping based on row. If I decide to make another grouping based on, sorry, I'm just looking for something more interesting, maybe rating. Okay, so now as you can see, I have a grouping based on rating and I have a grouping based on type. This is what they call a matrix report. A matrix report, you have two forms of grouping. You have grouping based on the rows and you have grouping based on the columns. As you can see, we can see this grouping here. And if you decide to group based on, you can see the visualization of this. You can turn this off if you want. You can turn the summary off if you want. You can turn the grand total off if you want. But then again, what's the benefit of the report if you have to turn everything off? But you just have that liberty of turning things off if you want. But then again, this is how to represent the report. The bottom line is you should know the type of report here. You've done a row summary that gives you a record count for direct account type, which is 7, channel account type, which is 4. Then it also gives you a vertical summary. This is a horizontal summary, right? The row summary. And it gives you the column summary. All odds in the system is 2. All warm is 3. All cold is 2. These are very intuitive, but then again, you need to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're looking for, you would not find it. You need to know what exactly you're looking for in the business data. That will now guide you into what exactly you're grouping on the row and what you're grouping on the column, okay? It's very important. This type of report is called a matrix report. Similar to the summary report, you can add a chart to a matrix report, okay? You can add a chart to a matrix report. And the last form of report is the join report. The join report, which is also another form of reporting, is when you are creating multiple reports from different objects that are not connected. Again, let me say that. Right now, all the records we are working with right now, they're connected, right? And it's good. It looks good because they're connected. You can match data and get data. But with join reports, you get a report, one block, the next report, second block. You can create up to 4 blocks, I think. You can create up to 4 blocks in a join report, but the data are not connected. So how do you create a join report? You go to report and you click on join reports. As you can see, join reports is a different type of reports. And it gives you report based on blocks. So now that you've seen the first block, block 1, accounts. I'll go to opportunities. And I want to create another block called opportunities. It's going to go and create opportunities block for me. And if you scroll to the right, it's going to give you another opportunity block. As you can see, there is no relationship between this data and this data. It's just going to give you a very big report that has different objects. That's why it's called a joint report. With a joint report, you cannot do a lot of things. You cannot do a lot of things with joint reports. For instance, you cannot subscribe to a joint report. You cannot do, I think, cross filter or something like that. You cannot do a lot of the things that we are doing. Okay, a lot of things that we're doing with the normal standard stuff, you cannot do it with a joint report. Okay, just have that at the back of your mind. That joint report, as the data coming in the pane, in the canvas, is not related to this data because obviously they are different objects. Okay, but I just needed to show you in case you're asked to create a report like this. It's very important to know the type of report you want to create and know the possibility of creating that report. I'll go back to the report again. I'm going to discard this. I'm going to open opportunities reports because I want to show you something. So right now we have this opportunity reports and I want you to look at right now we have an amount and it looks good. But what if the management has asked us to find out or create a new form of grouping that helps us to differentiate different types of opportunity based on their size. This is 100,000, this is 50,000, this is 75,000, this is 250,000, right? Let's say I want to say all opportunities that are less than 100,000, I'll call them small. All opportunities that are between 100,000 and 250,000, I'll call them medium. And anything greater than 250,000, I'll call them what? Large, right? As you can see, we don't have that field present in the system. We don't have that columns present in the system called size. We can create that column, and that column is called it's called a bucket column. A bucket column is a type of column you create to group certain, a bucket column is a type of column you create, is a virtual column you create to size or to group certain data based on a criteria. That will be my own definition. But generally, a bucket column is a virtual column. See that way. A virtual column, a virtual field that does not exist in an object, but you are trying to create that field based on the information you have in the system. So right now, I click on add buckets, and I'm going to call the bucket name size, which helps me to create a size of opportunity grouping. And I will be using the amount field, which is my field of interest for the grouping. So I'm going to say any amount that is less than 100,000, okay, $100,000, I want to call it small opportunity. Any amount that is greater than 100,000 but less than 250,000, I want to call it medium opportunity. And any amount that is greater than 250,000, I want to call it large opportunity. As you can see, we don't have small, medium, large in the system. We don't have size field in the opportunity, but now we're creating a virtual field. A virtual field would help us to group opportunity based on a new field. This field is not being saved in any way it's just for your reporting. And I can group by this field. So now I've created another information, another insight just by creating a bucket field. Okay, so you need to understand how to use inbuilt features of Salesforce reporting to solve your business needs. Again, these are business challenges. You will face business challenges. You would be required to create report that you don't know how to create. You need to know how to use bucket column. You need to know how to use filters. You need to know how to use cross filter, filter logic, and the likes to create your reports. And remember, summary reports, matrix reports, you can add a chart. Tabular report, you cannot add a chart. So I'm going to take a pause here because I've overwhelmed you with a lot of information, but it's needed for you to understand how to create a report. So raise your hand and I'll call you according to how your hands are raised if you have any questions, okay? Mesoma, you can unmute yourself and speak, please.
I didn't realize my hand was still up. Sorry about
Okay.
that. I'm not raising my hand.
No problem. Nonso, you can unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hi, Bob. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the lecture. I see that we have a quite robust report in Salesforce. My question here is there a scenario based on maybe your experience or use case you know already where one might need the use of an external reporting system that is not out of the box for Salesforce?
Yeah, obviously, if Salesforce cannot solve your problem, Salesforce will give you an external system that you can use. One of them is Tableau. Okay, you can integrate Salesforce with Tableau, and it is called a feature license. Remember, I told you about feature license? You add on feature license and you grant a permission for that user to use Tableau. So Tableau can do a lot of fancy stuff, which obviously Tableau is owned by Salesforce, owns Tableau anyway, so you can also it's also a Salesforce too. But yes, it's possible to integrate external reporting tool that are not necessarily Salesforce, and that's one of them is Tableau. In addition to that, if they ask you to do something very intuitive, but it's going to take you time, it's going to take you effort, just go to the App Exchange. In the App Exchange, you can download reports that people have built. Okay, they built that report. You can download them and use them within your org. For instance, Salesforce adoption dashboard is one dashboard that is very common to find out if people are using your Salesforce org. Okay, these have been built by people and you can just install them and use them without cracking your brain. Okay, but most likely the kind of report you're asked to do might not be out of the box reports. You have to think through and create them yourself. Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No worries. Maria, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Yeah. Hi, Babatope. So I wanted to know, is there any difference between using a cross-object filter and using a report typing that has been made for us, like maybe account with opportunity? Like, is there any difference between those two, or is it only used when we're using like custom objects?
So if you're creating a report type that is accounts with opportunities, so let's just quickly do that. Like this accounts and partners, opportunities, these opportunities, these are the kind of stuff you have. So going back to what you said, these accounts with partners, okay? Accounts with partners, continue. You go to filters and you say all accounts with partners. You know, you don't have a record there, so it's not a good example. But then again, the only difference is that it's going to give you the account name and the partner name. That's it, right? But the cross filter, as you can see, it gives you more option. Okay, it gives you more option, and you can drag those fields. Okay, maybe for this one, you can also drag the field. That's fine. But the cross filter is just maybe you have a custom report type and you've created that relationship, then you can use the cross filter. In addition to that, if you have the account, because of the relationship with partners or because of the relationship with opportunities, you can also use a cross filter. But that one, the cross filter, as you can see, it gives you a much intuitive way of doing things with or without. So it's already solving a problem for you. For instance, this partner, chances are we might not have, if this record exists, for instance, we might not have some account with partner. We might not have it, right? Maybe you can now do some filter, or maybe you can now do some maybe object or something like that to do some extra work. Okay, but with cross filter, you already you create that without even thinking. Like, it just creates it for you out of the box. Okay, that's just one of the benefits. But if you look into the reports again, you can see a lot of benefit that can come into play. But the major thing is with cross filter, you have the option to do with and without doing some extra work. However, if you're just creating account with opportunity or account with partners, you have those data and you have to start doing some manipulation to determine which of them has opportunity and which of them did not have opportunity. So you get that, you get the logic, right? You are doing extra work if you create without the cross filter. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
good. Naomi, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Hi, Babatope. Thank you again. So my question was actually related to the first person that asked the question about external data visualization. I'm just wondering, are you able to show us how to integrate Salesforce with Tableau? Because the Salesforce visualization seems to be a lot of tables and texts, and just doesn't look pretty. So are you able to show us how to integrate that with Tableau? It's not within the scope of what you're supposed to teach us.
Yes, definitely is not within the scope of what I'm supposed to be teaching you. And in number two, you need a license. It's not something you can do with a hands-on hog. So you need a feature license, okay?
Okay.
You go to company and you go to company information, you will see that you need a feature license to use, you need, I think it's CRM, Analytic Cloud, I think, yeah. You need this kind of license to use Tableau or something like that, okay? So you see, had Tableau, it's a license you need, and we don't have that, okay? So if you have those license, you can just integrate it, but then again, you don't even have it in the free hands-on org, so we cannot even demonstrate it, okay? I think I called Naomi just now. So Gaffer, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Babatope, for always giving us the best. My question is in relation to the first one, which is partly answered. Are you saying now that in Salesforce, the only charts available are what has been displayed on those report types, which is the tabular and the summary report type? Do you get my question, sir?
I have not even done chats. I was going to go into chats shortly. So this,
okay.
It's not the only chat available. The ability to add chat to the reports is a feature of summary and matrix. For tabular, you cannot add chat, but for matrix and summary report, you can add chat. However, there are more chat options. Once we get to dashboard, we should be able to see the chat options, okay? But we haven't gotten there. About 10 minutes, I'm going to show you dashboard, and we can see what we can do in terms of dashboard, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Joy, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Yeah, hi, sir. I was just going to ask, as regards the bucket column, you said it's not visible. Is it just, it's virtual? Like, who is it visible to? Person preparing the report, or is it discarded or deleted, or how does it work exactly? Creation of that bucket column. That's
what I meant was, it is not persisting in the objects, meaning that, you know, when you create a field, right, you will see that field in the object. But for that bucket stuff, it's just virtual, meaning that it's not like you creating a new field. It's only persisting within that report. Once you save the report, once you export the report, that's it. But it's not going to be a field you create in the Salesforce itself. Can you see? You create a field and relationship. So that bucket column is not there.
So like it's unreal, sort of.
It's a virtual field.
Okay.
Just for that report. Okay. Okay. I think I think we're good. Let's go into dashboard. Yes, I think we're gonna go a little bit more than the 10 p.m. today, but please, we just have to do the session because some of the things are required for your certification and also for your learning, okay? Dashboards. What are dashboards? Dashboards are just a visual representation of your reports. Dashboards are visual representation of your report, meaning that you cannot create a dashboard without a report. You cannot create a dashboard without a report. So I want to create a dashboard of accounts in the system. Okay, and I put this in a public folder. Okay, or let me just create, I'll just call it accounts dashboard. Okay. So when you create the dashboard, you create a folder and you put it in the folder and you select the dashboard. Okay, you create. So now that you have a canvas, this canvas is where you play around, where you do things. Okay, so in order to start creating the visual representation of whatever you have reported on, you need to add what they call a component. A component is the report you're selecting. I'm selecting the account reports, and you can see, one thing you can see clearly is that when I select this component and I put it on the dashboard, I cannot do anything else. Like, it's basically just a table. So what's the difference between just creating report and this stuff? The difference is that this is a tabular report. A tabular report, you cannot create charts out of a tabular report. So if you want to create a visual representation of your report, you need to group them. You need to group them by something. So I'll go back to reports. I'll clone this report. Okay, I will clone this report. I click on edit and I save as. Okay, save as is typically pretty much a clone copy. Okay, save. Then I want to make sure that I have a grouping, because the grouping is what makes me to create what? A visual representation. Chat. Run. And I save. Okay. So now if I save my dashboard, refresh it just to make sure that my new report is showing. Okay, I had components. I select the other one, which is a new one. Can you see the difference between the first one and the second one? The first one gives me, the first one is just a tabular representation, which has no difference between the previous report I created and the dashboard. The second one gives me some visual representation of my chart, of my report. And as you can see, we have different types of charts we can use in a dashboard. The first one is a bar chart. The bar chart is just a display of records based on the count, and you can see the bars increasing based on the count of the tag. Similarly, we have a chart. We have the columns. The columns. This is a bar, right? A bar is just this, and the columns is just a vertical representation of record count based on the type. So remember, bar is horizontal, column is vertical. And obviously, doesn't really matter, but at the end of the day, is a representation you're looking for. It's very important you select the right charts for the type of data you're visualizing. For instance, they ask you to find out how revenue is growing in the company. Can you use it to represent how revenue is growing in the company? No. You want to represent revenue and a date timestamp, meaning that last year, this year, projection for next year, or you can do a 10, maybe dates, January, February, March, April. Then you want to do the revenue in January, revenue in March, revenue in April, right? This is what they call a line graph, a line chart. A line chart is used to show range of, it's used to show time series of data. That means the vertical column needs to be a date timestamp. The vertical column needs to be a date timestamp. Again, let me start again. The bar charts. The bar charts are horizontal bars, as you can see, and it's used to find, maybe you want to compare distance, or you want to compare a value based on a single grouping. Okay, single grouping, you have the bars and you know the record counts. Similarly, with the horizontal columns, which is the columns, you can use to find out, okay, I want to see a vertical display of how things are increasing. Okay, you want to see a relative count of this against this against this. It's important to use the right chart. When you're presenting data, you realize that you just don't present data for the fun of it. You have to present data based on the requirements. The line graph especially is used to show range over a period of time. That means the horizontal section of a line graph should never be typed, should never be something abstract, should be a date, months, years, because you're projecting how something is increasing, decreasing, or changing over time. Okay, now we have what they call the donuts. As you can see, the donut is just a circle that shows the grouping, multiple groupings of something. So if you have multiple grouping contributing to a total value, you want to use a donut to represent that grouping. So you want to find out the accumulation of this record, which is nothing, to customer channel, to direct customer. Okay, this is a very good representation of grouping. If you have groupings in the system, you want to use a donut. And we have this metric. Metric is for counts. They've asked you, I want a total number of accounts in the system. I want a total number of customers in the system. You use a metric. You don't use a bar. You don't use a donut. You don't use a line. You use a metric. A metric gives you the total count of whatever you're looking for in the system. I'm going to be checking this in your project. So if you're doing my project, the chart you're using to represent data matters to me. I take it personal. If you use a different chart to represent an information, it shows that you don't know what you're doing. Okay? We also have what they call the funnel. Funnel is just to show multiple groupings in an ordered set. So look at this. Donut gives you a grouping without order, right? There is no order to it. But funnel, you see order. The one that is at the bottom is channel. The one here is direct. The one here has nothing, but you get a gist, right? It is order in terms of increasing order. It's multiple grouping, but it's increasing order. And we have this what they call the gauge. The gauge is used mostly used by the sales department or whatever department you want to call it, but it's used to show the deviation from target. Our goal is to get $100 million by the end of the year. Where are we today compared to our targets? The gauge is used to represent deviation from target. So if you have an annual revenue target of 100 million and you're currently at 20 million, use the gauge to represent, show that data to your business, to your management. Tell them that we know that our target is 100 million, but currently we have 25 million, and this is how far we are away from our targets. As you can see, the data chart you use determines how knowledgeable you are with representation of information. But the business should drive, the business insights you're getting should drive the data chart. The data you're trying to represent should be driven, not just put any charts on the canvas. Okay, so now that we have a chart on the canvas, we are going to save. Now we save. We have options in the settings. These options are very important because I told you earlier that you have to subscribe to a report. You can also subscribe to a dashboard. But what are the interesting side of a dashboard? When you save a dashboard, you go to the properties, and view dashboard as is one of the key properties of a dashboard. What do I mean by that? When you create a dashboard, because of record visibility, in the system, you can determine what the user that is viewing the dashboard would see. For instance, we have this as 29. What if the record permission does not enable this user to see all the records in the system? What would the dashboard display? This is where you set the option. That means when you save this dashboard and you select view as me, if you are a system admin, the user that has a lower visibility could see 29, because this does not display the record, right? It only gives you a summary of the record. So if you see 29 as a system admin, anyone that is viewing the dashboard will see 29. If you say view dashboard as another person, the person that you've selected will be the driver of the record that display on the dashboard. And if you say view as a dashboard viewer, which is maybe the ideal view for a very restrictive organization, like a private organization, then the data on the dashboard would only show what the user can see. So if the user can only see 10 records, the user will only see 10 records on the dashboard compared to 29 that the system admin can see. In addition to that, you can select whatever this thing you want for the dashboard, but the most important thing here is the view dashboard as, okay? And you can also let the dashboard viewer choose whom they want to view the dashboard as. Obviously, this is an option you can select, which obviously determines what the data can see, but it's a dynamic dashboard, okay? So now that you've saved that, you've created a fancy dashboard and you save, okay? You save and you can click on done. So what can you do with this dashboard? You can go to the home page and include this dashboard on the home page. How do you do that? Remember when I was teaching you Lightning App building, I click on edit page and I drag the dashboard into view, okay? And you can select the dashboard which you've created, okay? If you have multiple dashboards, you can select, drag another dashboard and select that dashboard, or whatever canvas you've created, you can save it and you activate it for whatever people you want to activate it for, okay? Assign as org default, which is fine. Then you go back to your home page and you will see the dashboard there. Now you've created a dashboard and you put it on the home page. But remember, you can go back to dashboard, go to dashboard, edit this dashboard, add a new component. Add a new component to the dashboard. I want to add a bar chart, add, bring it here. And I want to add another component. I want to add a funnel. But obviously, you need to know what you're doing, okay? Just don't add things because you want to add them. You have to know what you're doing. Now that you've updated this dashboard, go back to the home, refresh. It is there, right? You can see the dashboard displaying. This is how you build reports. This is how you build dashboard. And this is how you represent data in the system, okay? Refresh, you see the data come up in the system, okay? So as you can see, you can create a fancy home page just by few clicks. You see how we did reports? You see how we did the dashboard? You see how we brought it into the home page? And you see how we can make things look good in our hub. This is Salesforce administration. This is you working as a Salesforce administration, okay? Administrator, sorry. I click on the dashboard. I think I can download the dashboard. And there's so many other things you can do on the dashboard, or you can just figure that out yourself. But the most important thing here is that you can share the dashboard, okay? If you want to share, if you want people to have access to your dashboard, it has to be in a public folder. If you want people to have access to the dashboard you've created, it has to be in a public folder, or you share this dashboard with them. If you don't share this dashboard with them, they will not have access to the dashboard. So it's very important you share the dashboard with the right people that need access to the dashboard. In addition to that, you can share with roles, you can share with public groups, and you can determine the type of access they can have. View assets means they can only view. Edit assets means they can edit. Manage assets means they can manage the assets to the dashboard. Whatever you've done, they can manage it. Okay. So remember, there's so much things you can do with Salesforce, but the business will lead you. That was why I said this session is becoming a Salesforce administrator. You start creating things as an admin, but you're thinking. You're not just clicking, but you're thinking. Okay. So I'm going to take a pause here to find out if you guys have any questions. So if you have any questions, raise your hand and I'll try to attempt them according to how your hands are raised. However, we have about 5 minutes to close this class. So please make it snappy if you have any question. And if you don't have a question, we can close, okay? But I'll attend to those that have a question. So please raise your hand up if you have any questions regarding creating dashboard, the type of chat we can use, the reports, and whatever you need to know before we end the class for today. I know it's a bit late, like 6 minutes over time, but please bear with me. Ask your questions and we can close if you don't have any questions. Do you have any questions? Is this intuitive enough? Is this something you guys can get? Because you'll be doing it by next week in your projects. Okay. So I do not, Joy, do you still have any questions? Okay, I don't think Joy has any questions. So I think that's all for tonight. But before we end the class, I want you to please, okay, I think Sherman has a question. So Sherman, unmute yourself and speak.
Sorry, but it's my old hand. Sorry, I've dropped.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So Sherman, do you want to speak?
Yes. Hi, Babatope. Good evening. So my question is on the dashboard. Is there a way you can add animations to that to make the look and feel come out better?
I'm not sure. I've never done it before. So I'm not sure. I don't think we can, but by animation, you mean this sort will be clicking? No, it's not professional to add animation. But then again, maybe you're thinking about entrance animation and exit animation, maybe.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of, not like any other thing, like just like your funnel, maybe it starts coming from ascending to descending order or descending, like normal presentations that you do, the way you incorporate animations into them.
Okay, no, yeah, I know what you mean. I haven't done it before. I don't think you can do it, so you can research that, but I'm on 99% sure that you cannot do animation, but you can still research it just to be sure. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. So after this, the next class we have is workflow automation. That's very, very interesting, but very technical. So I want you to be patient with me for the next 2 classes we're going to be having, because that's the future of Salesforce. And it's technical in the sense that it's something that you guys might not get at first. For instance, workflows, process builder, how do you send an email? How do you automatically send, creates a field, creates records and the likes, okay? So please, the best way to learn ahead of the class is to watch previous cohort video. So when I'm teaching it, it becomes easier for you. In addition to that, we have the quizzes on the online learning assessment. Please try to do them, because if you do them ahead of our certification preparation for next week, you will be cruising the quiz. Okay, I said you'll be cruising. You will be able to do your certification without much stress, because as a professional, sorry, I'm doing 2 things at the same time. As a professional, right, you have, okay, this is not working for some reason. Let me just do that again. Okay, I have my caps on. As a professional, you don't have time. We have 3 months to accelerate your career, meaning that you have to be hustling all the opportunities, all the time you have to maximize it. Okay, so please try to look into the the quiz app and try to take the quizzes, and please try to get 100% in those quizzes so you can be prepared for your certification. I've given instructions to the group leaders. They will guide you on how to prepare further. However, please go to the online assessment and take your quizzes for every session we've taught. I've released for sales and marketing application. I've released for service and support application. Take those quizzes and see how confident you are for the exam. In addition to that, if you're in standard and you think you're confident about what you've learned so far, because anything we're doing further from tomorrow, by the way, we have a class tomorrow, okay? Unlike subsequent previous days, we need this class because we did not have class on Monday, and as a result, we're way behind in our timeline, our schedule. So it's very important we have a class tomorrow, okay? And we have a class on Friday, by the way. Sorry, I meant Friday, not tomorrow. Definitely we have a class for tomorrow, but we have a class on Friday as well. We are at least one day behind our schedule, so chances are we might have another 1 day of class just to complete our schedule for Salesforce admin. I don't know how that will span out, but I'll let you know how it goes. But definitely this week, we're going to be having classes on Friday. And for those that are interested in BA, obviously, we're going to be having a meeting on Saturday, which I've instructed operations to reach out to you guys. In addition to that, if you're currently in standard and you want to do BA, please reach out to me because I want to lock the BA training now. I need to know the number of people that are interested. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far and you're in standard, you want to do BA, please reach out ASAP. If you're in basic and you want to do BA, you can still reach out. But then again, we cannot go back in what we've done. You just have to learn going forward, okay? And if you're in any of those consultants or developer, you want to do BA, please reach out again. Or if you want to switch from professional consultant to BA or vice versa, please, you have to do that as soon as possible because after this month, no more switching. Consulting is hard. As you can see, it's not just click with consulting. It's about thinking with consulting. You have to think, okay? And you have to learn a lot. Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, there are a lot of materials. So if you're not committing to the training, you're going to miss out. I want the BA team to be able to start applying for job by mid of next month. I want consultants, anyone, developers, you cannot even start applying for jobs unless you want to get a job as a consultant, okay? Developers, you have another 3 months before you even start applying for job. For consultants, by mid of next month, I want you to start applying for job. For a BA, starting from mid of next month to end of next month, I want to start applying for jobs. And you start getting offers. You start getting offers once you're done with your certification. I can almost guarantee that. But then again, it's going to be very intense going forward. It's going to be very intense going forward. I keep saying this because you have to be prepared for it. Salesforce journey is something you have to embrace. You don't do it in and out. You have to embrace it and go on with it because you have to keep learning and growing. All this stuff I taught you, I'm teaching you guys, I learned them as a result of my hunger. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to figure out things. I did my trailhead. I did my certification and keep going. Every day I get offers. Every day I get offers to do 1 or 2 things, but I have to reject them because I don't have the capacity to do that. But I believe once you guys are there, you will be the one getting those offers because you have committed to the Salesforce journey. Having said that, everyone has their free will. Whatever you've done, you still have the free will to decide the pace which you want to take this journey, okay? So it's just very important I let you know that you can switch from whatever you have right now until January 25th, whereby we just cut it off and just say, you know what, we're done. We cannot be switching all around. You have to make up your mind. Do you want to become a developer, a BA consultant, or you just want to take the skills and be comfortable with just having a certification, okay? You need to start making that decision by 25th of January. We have to do the cutoff. In addition to that, anyone that has registered for anything other than Salesforce admin and is not a professional, you need to present your Salesforce certification ASAP. Otherwise, I'm going to refund your money. Meaning that if you register for Scrum, if you register for Service Cloud, if you register for Sales Cloud, if you register for anything that is not professional or admin, I need to see your certification. Otherwise, I will not accept you in the class, and I will not put you into any group, and I'll refund your money, because I want to train those that are progressing. I don't want you to do Service Cloud before Salesforce admin. It doesn't make sense to me. You need to have done Salesforce admin before Service Cloud. You need to have done Salesforce admin before Scrum Master. You cannot become a Salesforce Scrum Master without a Salesforce certification. And now we're going into projects. We're going into a bit of work experience, individual project, group project. How can I give you Salesforce projects if you haven't done Salesforce admin certification? That means you are not qualified to be doing that project, okay? So please have that at the back of your mind. I'm likely to refund you by the end of the week if you don't present your certification, okay? So if you guys have any other questions, please send it to operations. They'll be able to address it. And if there are no questions, I think Really One has one question. I'm going to accept Really One question, and we'll close in 2 minutes. So Really One, make it snappy and let's close. Really One, please.
Hi, Babatope, thanks for the training. My question is regarding the BA training. So how do we reach out to you for the BA training, for those of us on the basic package?
Support at, so if you're on the basic, first of all, you need to have attended all the classes. So you cannot just say you're doing BA, you need to have attended all the classes, and you have to get your certification, which I'm going to give you the timeline for getting certification. You have to get it, because I cannot give you a Salesforce BA training without your knowledge of Salesforce. So my expectations are you have attended all the classes. It's very important, because it's standard. I can almost predict that you'll be able to watch the videos if you miss any class. But on basic, I'm not sure if you've seen all the videos. So obviously, if you promote yourself from basic to professional, you have access to all the videos. But then again, you need to convince me that you haven't missed a lot, because it's very hard to teach you clinics, tutorials, and everything like that. So I want to make sure that you are actually committed, okay? So if you have any issue regarding moving to BA from basic, from standard to professional, please send an email to support@blackforce.ca, and they will be able to address whatever issue you have, because we cannot address it one-on-one. Just send support@blackforce.ca. They will be able to address it for you guys, okay? So please, I need to close that BA, because I need to know the numbers and I need people to be well organized. You should by now, unless it's money related, you should by now know what career you want to do in Salesforce, unless it is money related. If it's not money, and there's not much I can do about the money, to be honest with you, because the resources we're giving to you guys is so powerful, and the materials and everything is so powerful that it can help you, lifetime help. That's what we're providing for you. You will not see it right now until the next 6 months and 1 year, when you're making 180, 150, 200 per year. That's when you will see the impact of this training, because there are limited people that can do what we're doing right now. And look at the room, over 200 people that will be professional in the next 3 to 4 months. It's amazing. But then again, you need to be committed, okay? So please send an email to support@blackforce.ca regarding any inquiry regarding moving to professional or whatever it is you're having issues with, and they'll be able to address it for you, okay? It's not something we can address one-on-one, but if you send an email, you will definitely get a response, okay? Really well.
All right, thank you.
No worries. I think that's all from me. Guys, take care. Thanks for attending. I will see you tomorrow, but please watch the video ahead of class, because tomorrow class is going to be interesting. All the best. Take care, everyone. Bye. Good night.